Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming or listening. Dave, do you have any questions on attendance?
Nope.
Next up is agenda approval. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to the board agenda?
I had a few additions today, 2 additions under resignation, a correction on number 3 on leave of absence. And then the MOU at the end I couldn't change because it's a PDF, but the hard copy that's available, if it's approved, the dates need to be fixed as the date said 23-24, and it's for the 22-23 school year. So the hard copy, if it gets approved, is corrected.
All right, so we have an agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 7-0. Next up is open forum. Rules for open forum. 3 minutes per speaker. Open forum shall not take more than a total of 15 minutes. No complaints about individual staff members. All presenters will conduct their business in a manner that meets community standards for decorum. The board will not take action on items presented in open forum. The board may respond in writing at a later date. And I also have a statement to read. It has come to my attention during the last several school board meetings that the public is commenting during our board meetings. I want to remind everyone that open forum is for that purpose unless called upon by a superintendent, principal, or board chair. These meetings are business by law and are for school board members to have open conversations. With that being said, does anybody have anything to speak of? Mrs. Hartle.
I have something to talk about that is not necessarily in conjunction with our counselor report.
Okay.
Can I do it from here?
You may.
So Mallory and I went to the Children's Mental Health Conference recently, and it was amazing, and we got really fired up, and I had this whole big blistering speech about how we need to do better, and then I calmed down and I read it again, and I put down some constructive things. So across the board, behavior, that's what we hear from staff, that's what we hear from parents, that's what we hear from our own children at home, K through 12. The behaviors are getting out of control. Students complain about it, they're like, it's interfering with my learning. Right now, I know in the high school, we're sending kids to the office where they just kind of sit there, they're not really, we talk to them, but it kind of ends there. I understand we need to remove them so that class can continue, but we also need to address it, or they get referrals. We're not really making them feel safe and welcome to come back to the class. Would really love to see something like meetings with teachers. If someone gets sent out of class, they need to have that relationship rebuilt. We talk about that a lot with students amongst each other. We spend a lot of time helping students communicate with each other if they have issues, and I think we need to help facilitate communication between staff and students as well. Some of my best relationships with students started with me apologizing to them for something, and they realized I was a human, and then we've had a great relationship ever since. So I'd really like to support all of our staff and students in having conversations like that rather than just going right to discipline. We also need to address some of the developmental expectations. We have 12 and 13-year-olds having the same expectations as 17 and 18-year-olds, and it just really is not very realistic. I know myself and Ms. Hinckley have talked about doing some deep dive into what we can do maybe differently for like the junior high students still within the building, because obviously we don't have a junior high. Making sure that, like I said, staff are also held accountable in mending relationships when there's incidents in their room. But I also wanted to share with you one of the things that I heard is the Duluth version of the resource training like we have from St. Cloud. The Duluth version of that did a really deep dive into surveying staff in the Duluth and surrounding areas. They've surveyed 15 different schools. And the biggest things those teachers asked for was recognition. to be heard, to be able to use their days off, whether there's a sub or not, access to mental health and access to physical fitness centers, walking tracks and stuff. I feel like our district does amazing on all of those. We have free mental health conversations if you want with Jerry. Our staff, we do staff shout outs to each other, we do student shout outs to teachers. I feel like I see a lot of teachers coming in and talking to admin. And obviously they have access to the fitness center, and Jennifer will tell you that no one's ever denied their day off, even if we have to combine classrooms. And when this, we're all feeling done, it's the end of the year. I know part of it's just the end of the year, and we're all very frustrated. Students are too, and we wanna be outside and doing something else. But, they can feel that. When we're done, they can tell we're done. And that just gives them no incentive to do better if they're playing off of us. So what students needs is, consistency. We need to be consistent. The students, will respond to that. The staff need to use the tools that they're given and be okay with if they aren't following the expectations that there's a consequence, just like the students are. And I feel like that's maybe an area we haven't really had to do much. And that's probably not a very popular statement, and oh well. there's some of us who could always be doing better, and I think we need to be comfortable with our admin or our supervisors coming and saying, hey, let's do this differently, what do you need, how can we do this, and being open to working on that, because nobody is really, no one's perfect at their job. And if you really are done, I would ask you, what are you doing about that? If you feel that way, what are you doing? We've been given a lot of self-help trainings and stuff like that, and resources, and if you've tried all those and you still really are done, then maybe you need to try something else, try a different subject, try a different school, try a whole different career, I don't know, whatever it is. But no one's ever seen Mr. Kreff smile as much as he has since he switched to Fayette. Maybe it's just wearing sweatpants, I don't know. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of remind ourselves that it's not all the kids' behavior, and we can't just prop it on them. That's all. I'm probably more than 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mrs. Hartle. Does anybody else wish to speak? All right, we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions or need anything pulled from the consent agenda? Brian, did you add anything?
Just what we talked about it with agenda approval, the 2 additions under resignation and clarification under number 3 for leave of absence.
If there are no questions, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
One second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is the bills. If you have a question on a bill, could you please state the page number and the bill number? Does anybody have any questions on the bills? If there are no questions on the bills, then I'm looking for a motion to pay the bills.
No, make that motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is superintendent's report. Mr. Masterson.
Like to start, just because we started talking about a little bit at our work session about the activity bus ridership. So I dove in a little more to get more precise numbers, and you can kind of see the yearly average ridership. And the numbers I have are through March, so I haven't calculated April's. It did just come out today. I hadn't calculated that in there yet. But we're averaging for the Finlayson route about 3 kids per evening, and for the Highway 48 route, 2.2 kids, just over 2 kids per route. So if you open this document, I'll go to the average tab. You can kind of see where the math came from. We had 13 times where the trips went out, 14 and so on. So you can kind of see where those numbers came from, the ridership, then divided by how many days that route ran. So you kind of can see where I got those numbers from. Continuing to watch that as we make recommendations for next year with if we're gonna have that, but after diving in, the numbers, we're still averaging about 5 kids per evening for the activity bus. So it's something that admin's looking at as far as recommendations for next year. It has been good for those kids that are riding it, but our numbers still aren't quite where they were even a couple, 3 years ago. So any questions on activity bus ridership? Or any more information you'd like me to gather as we head to next month? Okay.
How's the sports attendance? I mean, how many kids are going out for sports? Is that number down as well?
I'd have to pull that. I know they were up in the fall. I'd have to pull that for spring. I haven't heard
Okay.
spring numbers, but I can get that for you. Can you write that for me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Then just a couple reminders. First, we have our end of the year breakfast for all staff, and all board members would be welcome to attend on June 2nd. We'll start eating between 7 and 7:15, and then a quick ceremony after that where we recognize our teacher and support staff of the year and some other staff accomplishments as well. And then last reminder, this Wednesday is our senior awards banquet at 6 p.m. at FES. Many of you have signed up, thank you. If you're interested in giving a closing, please let me know at the end of that banquet, as that position is available if a school board member would like that.
Where is the end of your breakfast?
End of the year breakfast will be in the high school cafeteria, and then the ceremony part will move to the Fine Arts Center.
All right, thank you, Brian. Next up is high school principal's report.
Good evening. Just a few things to update everyone on as far as hiring is going. As of today, we've hired a math teacher and one special education teacher. We did have one of our English teachers resign. She's moving closer to home, and so we have an English position open next year, as well as one special ed and then the transition special education that we're still trying to hire for. Scheduling update, Ms. Hartle and I are still looking at scheduling. We're gonna meet with the special education department since we lost a position. We have to move caseloads and some classes and things, so we're gonna meet with that department on Wednesday. And then we're gonna be meeting with our ITB teachers to kind of look at that schedule, and then from there kind of place things. So Katie and I are continuing to work on that, and we'll continue into June. Number 3 is just some important dates for seniors that I shared in my newsletter and just sharing with everybody here. Number 4, 7th grade graduation, 7th grade orientation. Our spring orientation will take place on May 18th. I attached the schedule there for you. We're gonna kind of do the same thing that we've done in the past. So that's our 7th grade orientation, and then we'll have another one too on workshop week as well, where kids get to do their class schedules and all of that. Summer band, Ms. Shushin, I can't talk. Oh, gosh, thank you. We'll be doing marching band and summer lessons, and she'll be sending out information this week. And the last thing is I would like to give a big thank you to Jordan and Ari for being our senior representatives this year on the school board. We really appreciate everything you both have done this year and for taking the time to come. And I will let you do your last update.
My name is Jordan Masterson, if anyone doesn't know. I'll just start with our update for our spring sports. Most of these words are ours, by the way. Softball, we have had many home games. Currently, as of last week, 3-1, and they won today, like 11-2. They lost to Moose Lake. I think that's their only loss, and they got second in state last year. And after a lot of time being inside, they're looking forward to the warm weather and being outside. Baseball, we're doing all right. We just had our ESCO-Aiken tournament, which didn't go well, but they're both good teams, and we hung in there. And we're looking forward to having like a bajillion games a week from now on. Track has been doing very well. Most of their meets have been in bad weather, but they've been doing well. I'm sure many of you have heard Marcel Ritchie beat the high school record in shot put, which was 31 years old. He beat it with 49 feet and 9 inches, edging out the previous record of 49 feet and 7 inches. He's the third person in HFHS history to hold the record in shot put, so congratulations to Marcel. We just had a powwow, and mid-April, HFHS hosted a powwow with the assistance of the Native American Student Association. This was a great opportunity for our students to find out about other cultures and learn how to appreciate cultures that are from their own. Jordan and I attended the powwow at as well as the second session hosted at the Mashawquod Community Center. Both experiences were amazing to be a part of, as well as witnessing a representation of a different culture. We had never been to a powwow before, and it is something I would love to witness again. And I believe that many other classmates of ours should witness it again, even if they don't really want to. Because this is not often that HF students have the ability to go out and experience things out of their comfort zone like that. And I'm so thankful for this experience, and at the next NASA-supported powwow, whether it be at HFHS or the Mashawquod Center, I hope to see more students, staff, and community members taking part in dances, as well as enjoying themselves at a great culturally inclusive experience. And that was on the powwow. And graduation is 14 days away, and we're very excited for that. Prom went very well, other than cold feet and a long night for some people. And then some final notes. Art and I both are very thankful for this opportunity and the ability to come to these meetings and become more involved in our school and our community. And I know that Art would be saying the same things, and if she were here, she'd probably be saying how she had many more meaningful contributions than I did. But we're both very glad to have been here, and we've gained a lot in our speaking and our learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Jordan, I wanna echo Ms. Hinckley and say that you guys have did a wonderful job this year, so make sure you tell Ari. And we wish you all the best luck. Alright, we're moving on to Mrs. Spellard.
All right, good evening. Start out with my hiring date as well, or my update. Right now, we've interviewed and offered both BPK and Phi Ed. We're still looking for 5th grade and 2 special ed positions, and now a 2nd grade position as well. Still waiting on to see if we get a 1st grade position at Hinckley Elementary. You can kind of see the staff lineup as proposed right now. Again, things could still shift. FES lineup, you see Kelsey Smith will be stepping in the pre-K position. We were able to connect with MDE in regards to the para support that would be needed in there. And we have to follow the guidance provided by the state of the youngest learner. So it would be a 10-to-1 ratio for staff to students. So as soon as we hit that 10 number, we're fine, but as soon as we hit 11, we have to have a support staff in there during all instructional time. So the only time that really doesn't fall under instructional time would be lunch. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. We are at 8 incoming kindergarten kids and 1 4-year-old. Susie does tell me that there are a couple on the radar coming into kindergarten that would put us at 10. So when I'm up there Friday, I'm gonna connect with her just to see if she'll make those phone calls and see if we can commit to, you know, what our number is. So we'll just kind of play that by ear right now, but that's what we did find out from the state. Any questions on that? I know that was a topic of our work session. We went back to having kindergarten roundup at Hinckley, just trying to contact some of those parents so we don't have late August enrollments. We know we're going to anyway, but it was okay. It didn't go off as quite as well as we had hoped, but this is the first year since COVID that we've had it. It was a fairly good turnout. It's tough to try and determine whether you have it in the middle of the day where there's a lot of parents working, have it in the evening. So we'll just kind of keep playing with that, but I think it was a good thing, and parents were very happy that it was back in session. There will be an open house in Finlayson on the 17th from 2 to 5. Just really coming in, checking out the school, meeting the staff, getting a little tour and whatnot. We'd like more to register that night if possible. Depending on the addition of hopefully our 1st grade class, we're gonna have some major shifts over at the elementary. As you know, we are well out of room, so we'll be probably dividing and conquering some special ed and title staff into one classroom. We won't do anything as extreme as we did for the office rooms for mental health, but we will have to divide some rooms somehow and create some space, but we know that that's what is best for our kids. Miss Hankey talked about 7th grade orientation. I just think that's a really great opportunity for our kids to get their eyes on what high school looks like. For an hour is all they need at first, well, just little by little. So really looking forward to doing that again. Last year was the first year back in that action. It's just a good day for them. Kindergarten graduation. Finlayson is combining theirs with the spring program, so that will be good to get more people into the school to celebrate our young learners. And then May 30th will be kindergarten graduation down here at HES. End of year activities are all across the board. It is a busy month of May, so looking forward to bringing some bouncy houses in. Right now, Mrs. Hartle talked about behaviors. May is a tough month. We know their structure, their stability is coming to an end, but really, we calculated our numbers today, and the kids who have gotten referrals for the Q4, we're still only at 13%. So the behaviors might seem big, but we're right in the ballpark with MTSS, where 80% of our kids are really being successful in the gen ed classroom. And sometimes those positives are hard to find and celebrate, and really, if a kid gets a referral in Q4, doesn't mean it's a huge behavior, right? It's just, they made a mistake, they had an accident, whatever the case may be, and we're gonna get back to learning. So, Katie, I really echo what you were saying, and we help facilitate those conversations all the time at the elementary level as well. And if we're teaching 5 and 6 year olds to restore it, sometimes we have to teach the 30 and 40-year-olds to have those same conversations. So, it's a great year. I mean, a lot of fun, and we celebrate our kids, so.
Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Fuller? Thank you, Mrs. Fuller. You were done, right?
I'm done. That's it. That's all you get out of me.
Next up is community ed. Becky.
Okay, thank you, Jody. You can see our class review. We had a busy month as well. This is, we had 6 weeks, very, very busy. One thing I wanted to give you an update on is we had received an arts grant from East Central Regional Arts Council. That's what funded our Monroe Crossing. And then we were also going to do the Wizard of Oz play in August, which we were really looking forward to. And we got the notification last week that the Prairie Fire has gone just belly up. And they've been around for 36 years. They've got programs all over the state. I know I looked on Facebook, and districts all over from St. Paul to Waconia were saying, we have to cancel our summer program because, and basically they made it through COVID, but they just could not find staffing, adequately trained staffing, and they're highly trained people that they send out to run their performances. So we still have the grant. And we actually have a year that we can utilize that. So we're just looking at some different options, but we really wanted that Wizard of Oz. So that was a big disappointment. Thankfully, ours wasn't until the end of August. We didn't have children signed up for it yet. So anyway, we will keep you updated on that. We did have the father-daughter dance. I think it was actually our most successful one we've had to date. Our numbers were very close to last year. I was thinking back, I think we've done this about 11 years or so. And I know we're up a good 100 people from kind of our earlier averages. So we're, right around 218, which very strong numbers. There was no waiting line in the food, no waiting line for the photography. So it was just an excellent night. Very, very, very fun for everybody. Also wanted to just let you know, as you know, the Lions Club donates funds for our free swimming and for our Hinckley-Finlayson students in January and February. And we used whatever was left over for the 5th grade swim lessons on May 1st through the 5th. So that's the way the rest of those funds were utilized. We're very grateful for that. As the superintendent said, the senior dinner is on Wednesday night. If you have not reserved your spot yet, we still have an opening. I think we're at about 168 right now, but I'm sure we could fit in some more. And just to underscore, as Mr. Masterson said, it is at 6 that we are hoping to start serving. So that's a little earlier than previous years, just so everybody's aware of that. Summer rec flyers were distributed last week. Hopefully you've all seen this. Angela's done a really nice job putting lots of activities together for summer. We have a WSI course in May. Actually, it's already starting. We have 7 registered, so that will equip, and we have one Hinckley-Finlayson person that's taking that training. That just helps us being able to offer a full array of swimming lessons. And that actually leads to my action item tonight. The WSI pay rate has not changed since 2017. And I know. And so we really would like to make that pay equal our lifeguard pay. It's, they put out $200 for the training, plus another $20, I believe, for the manual if needed. But they are putting out money for this training, and we would really like to increase their pay from that $12.20 to $13.50. We increased our lifeguard pay a year ago, January, and I think it has been helpful. I know in some of our neighboring districts, they are not able to offer the swimming programs that we do because they do not have lifeguards or they do not have trained WSI staff. So I feel like we're very, very fortunate in keeping our lifeguards that we have, and we want to kind of plan for the future with that. So if we could have action on this, and it would be helpful because we did have WSI people that have not been paid yet that did participate in that May 1 through 5 Lions Club swimming for the 5th graders. That could actually that could make that their pay for that $13.50 if that would be approved.
All right, so Becky is looking for approval to increase the water safety instructor pay from $12.20 to $13.50.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you. Did that, and that passed.
Yes. Did
I just-
anybody have any questions for Becky?
If I could add one more thing.
Oh, sorry.
John just checked.
I just told her in 2007 I was making $14 an hour at Rush, WSI.
Yeah, and they do have additional prep and record keeping they have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and most of our WSI instructors are also lifeguard trained as well. So, and the other thing, I'm not bringing this up tonight, Jody, but I think we will in the future. We passed that, like I say, a year ago January, that our lifeguards get $13.50. Now it'll be our WSI instructors as well, but they don't have any pay grade increases. So I think we need to look at that moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
We talked about making sure it gets in the next support staff handbook, so there's some steps and increase in pay.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Becky? All right, thank you, Becky. Next up is counseling special services. Katie, you are up.
Well, this kind of covers the whole district. You can see Corinne's report on, are you gonna keep Be Good People for next year? Gonna continue with Be Good People and our safety patrol information there. And I know she would once again want to thank all the staff that helped pitch in on the wearing jeans to help kind of raise that fundraiser for the safety patrol's field trip that they're doing. The elementaries are looking at revising their truancy, as I believe is the high school. It's always kind of a work in progress, depending on who can be at the table. Electives, we are very, very low on what electives we offer, especially as far as just numbers in general. Most of our main, elective areas, those teachers, so they get 5 hours, well, we're 7 through 12 building, they automatically get 1 hour with 7th grade and 1 hour with 8th grade, that leaves 3 hours a day to teach some of our bigger electives, like our industrial tech and our art and facts, stuff like that. It's not very many, especially like with art, every student has to take at least 1 art credit. That kind of doesn't leave a lot of room for having a variety of classes and whatnot. But the main part is that most of our electives that we currently offer are, I would like to be able to have them be more in line with career prep types of things. Just offer classes that are in the more high demand fields. We don't currently have a computer anything class, with the exception of the AP computer science class, which is more principles of computer science as opposed to like operating it or programming or coding or anything like that. We do have the Healthcare Academy, which is ITV through Pine Tech. It's a little bit frustrating because it lands on 4th hour, which is over our lunch, which is, our kids are always kind of catching either the beginning or the end of it, which is an economic planning, they can't fit them all at the perfect time. That's kind of the only thing we have for healthcare. And then obviously, like all the trades, we push a lot of field trips, and Mrs. Johnson does a good job taking students out into the field to see other trainings, but it would be nice if we had more electives that were career oriented. I'll probably just always leave number 2 on here. But I do want you to see, I did say I appreciated having an extra counselor this year. Mr. Masterson did warn me ahead of time that it was probably temporary because it was COVID money, but it has been fabulous. And Mallory was a great addition. Just one more person to swoop in with those kids who are having issues, who, you know, tearful students having a rough day, as well as it was nice to have someone to bounce ideas off of, and she and I have been working on a more specific plan to do small group interventions and some skill building, especially with junior high. We kind of did a model one this year. We know what we would like to do and what we would not do. And that was also in support of a grant, or what's your... What's
Achievement
the,
integration.
where we can earn credit?
Oh,
Exemplary grants?
exemplary
The
grant for the
exemplary
spring.
grant, yeah, that gave us some support for that. So we appreciated that. And then, we were talking about behavior earlier, or I was ranting about behavior earlier. We have a lot of therapeutic mental health resources. They're all usually very full. Luckily, we have found a couple other services that we've been able to kind of refer out to, whether they can come in-house or not. Families have been taking part in going out and sending their children to those. However, we continue to have the same problem as your Prairie Fire Company and having a hard time hiring, as we all know, especially not even just a warm body, but even someone specifically skilled in what we need. And so we have had to kind of make do and put some of our like behavior interventions on whichever staff member is willing, who maybe has a good relationship with students or has room in their schedule. We really could use a behavior interventionist specifically trained to do behavior modeling. The solution isn't to always put them all on an IEP. That's not realistic. And I think some of the things that people are feeling the frustration on, if we had a behavior interventionist or always and, right, a full-time dean of students. Our dean of students is also partially our athletic director, which just nobody has enough time to do their job. We'll just leave it at that. So maybe a full-time dean of students or a behavior interventionist, one other person to help with those. Like Mrs. Sculler said, it's not all the students, it's a small percentage, but they have big behaviors or frequent behaviors. And so we just really need another skilled human to kind of swoop those kids up and start building those skills. And it would be absolutely fabulous if we just had a lovely counseling center space where the mentor could be and the counselors and the students could come in and get help, and there would always be someone. They don't have to come through the chaos of the office. You know, so when we build on, just we would like a windows and like atrium. Plants are good for mental health. If you don't ask, they cannot give it to you. But we will. It does not seem like mental health or behaviors are going away, so we will just continue to need more support with that.
Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Hartle?
And also pointing out that Tri-Board is no longer providing mental health. They have disbanded that service.
Okay. Thank you. Katie. Next up is professional development curriculum report. Jonathan.
Thanks, Jody. Just highlight real quick. The elementary ELA curriculum is just giving a lot of confidence to our teachers, and like it says there, I hear a lot more positives than negatives. I believe you do too, Mrs. Hiller. I think you do too, Mr. Masterson as well. So year 2 is going to be critical though, and just continuing to bring PD in and just understanding of what's coming and where it's at, and I think teachers will even become more comfortable with where they're at. And then just having all the students been through it for a year, as they come through now it'll start to work together as they come through. We're looking for more amplified training on October 2nd, for ELA anyway. We'll do some onboarding because we have a fair amount of staff that we might need to train when new teacher training's coming up. So we'll look at that as well. Pursuing 6th through 8th grade math curriculum for next year. And there's the cost for 6 years is about $42,000. And we have $27,000 set aside in the MTSS grant. The curriculum will be blended. There will be some online components, but there will also be a mathematician's notebook where all homework type stuff and in-class work can be done by hand. So that was really, it's not exactly what we piloted, but it's very much the same curriculum, just tweaked a little bit and a little actually more to our teachers' liking to have more of that physical copies there for the students, which they think is going to be really nice. So teachers for that will get training this summer, and I'm going to go myself as well, and Mr. Hogberg will try to go as well, so we get more people trained in that. Then 9th through 11th, they'll continue piloting the same materials that they're working with this year. Right. What we're looking at for 6-8 will eventually build into those grades, so we're just trying to identify if that's the route they want to go for the older kids, or if they're going to just keep them with the current stuff that they're working with right now. So that'll be a decision a little more for next year. You can see professional development there. We've got Check and Connect training again this summer. We currently have 12 people that are, well, I guess I don't even know how many are coming back. So we got at least 8 or 9 people that are currently trained that are coming back. And then we'll train another 10 people this summer. Just focusing right now on strengthening and getting more people trained. And then eventually the thought and idea is to bring all those people together and continue training for potential, just to build on that a little bit and make that program stronger. We do have a lot of students that use that program at the high school. Not as many at the elementary, but they're starting, they keep getting more. But that's one of our largest interventions for students at the high school, is working with our Check and Connect mentors. And then just some other stuff there on some PD. And then that last one is that open invitation. I've talked to a couple of you, and some of you have expressed interest in coming in to see what's going on in the classrooms, and I know especially the elementary teachers are super excited to show you what's going on. So contact me or contact Bonnie and we'll get you in. Contact Kim. 6th grade math teacher would be super excited to show you what's going on in her rooms, because there's some awesome stuff going on in there. So let me know, and I'll work some time on my schedule, or Bonnie will, and we'll show you around and we'll get you into some rooms. And I think it just makes the teachers even more excited when you come in to see what's going on, because they're really seeing some cool things, and they really want to show you what's going on and are appreciative of, hey, now we have this curriculum, we can use it, and we'd like to look at something for math as well. So And the last thing is we're just looking for smart boards too, so that will help as well. So any questions?
No questions for Jonathan? Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Next up is board committees report. Does any board member wish to present their committee?
I have ECMAC, and ECMAC is adding a network operations specialist position. They also reviewed the distant learning schedule for 23-24, so for next year. And the budget was approved for next year, so if anybody wants to see any of that, I can forward you any of that everything.
Does anybody have any questions for Angela? Did you want to speak in anymore, Angela, on professional
I think
development?
Jonathan
Did Jonathan touched everything? All right, then we'll move on to communications.
I didn't have any.
No communications. Next up is budget discussion.
You can see our spending report through April. We've spent about 80%, just over 80% of our budget, and we've completed about 83% of the school year, so happy to see that we're still under where we are in the school year with our spending. As we're going through this month, still really waiting just to hear what the state legislation is going to do with funding or mandates or things that we may have to do that they don't tie funding to, so we're kind of still in the waiting pattern. They said last week we might have an update by the end of last week. It didn't come, so hopefully we get that update this week. So I have not changed that revenue projection since you saw it at our work session. But in the meantime, we also need to plan for bakery, fuel, dairy, garbage bids. Those have gone out and should be back May 19th. So those of you on the commodities team, bid team, we'll set that meeting coming up here shortly to review those as that's important for our budget purposes as well. Our enrollment is about one kid. I mean, we've had some fluctuations since this was entered May 1st, but as of May 1st, we are one student more than we were last month, but I believe we've had a couple enrollments even in the last week. Hard to believe we've had kids still enrolling, you know, as we're heading to the middle of May, but our enrollment's been holding pretty steady around that 985 number. Questions on that before we go to policy reapproval? Okay. Otherwise, for policy reapproval, I'm recommending the approval of these 4 policies. We talked 2 months ago about the coaching handbook. Mandy has some updated numbers in here, and she put in her explanation in there if you had a chance to read that. After discussing with the school board on the fund balance policy, it felt like most of you were comfortable continuing with our current policy. And last month, there was a question on the transportation, on the video recording on school buses. So I did update that language where it is not law that we have to have a videotape on these buses. So we use the word could up here, be equipped with video camera, and what the law does say is if it is equipped with a camera that we have to have conspicuously placed signs notifying riders that their conversations and actions may be recorded on tape. Those buses that do have those cameras, we have those signs, and we are trying to update those cameras as quickly as we can so all buses have them, but it is not law to have that, so we did update that language in that policy. Was there any questions on any of them?
Does anybody have any questions? If not, I'm looking for a motion to accept the 4 policies: coaching handbook, the fund balance policy, the transportation of public school students, and the video recording on school buses.
I think with the fund balance policy, it's not consistent with the updated MSBA policy. And I think our current policy is pretty old and it's pretty weak, and I'm not even sure if it complies with the GASB 54 statement requirement. And I think we should take a closer look at MSBA, and we should consider strongly matching what they have as a model. And if you look at the Pine City School District, theirs is pretty close to what the MSBA policy is. there's terminology in our current fund balance policy, unreserved fund balance. That's not a term used with GASB 54. And you won't see that term in our financial audit report either. I think we need to consider updating our fund summary policy, fund balance policy. And I'll just read the purpose of the fund balance policy for the MSBA. It says here clearly, the purpose of this policy is to create new fund balance classifications to allow for more useful fund balance reporting and for compliance with the reporting guidelines specified in statement number 54 of GASB, which is Government Accounting Standards Board. So I would like to encourage our other 6 board members to strongly consider that. Or maybe we can study it some more. Maybe Brian, you can send out some more information on what that MSB model policy is, and maybe reconsider approval of this policy at the next meeting.
Does MSBA say anything about our fund?
I haven't sent theirs, I haven't sent ours to them. I had sent a comparison between the two, but I haven't checked with MSBA specifically if ours is in compliance or not.
So we don't know if this is in.
I haven't checked with MSBA. This policy we've had this way for sure since I've been here. I don't know how far back, you know, if it was changed dramatically before that.
I think it's been fairly consistent with this policy over my years at least, if I remember right. It seems like it's worked okay.
The MSBA policy here says that they revised theirs in 2022, and then the purpose, it's a new fund balance classification, so it seems like there's some new stuff that may have come out. Reporting requirement, terminology, etc. And I do have a copy of the Pine City policy if anyone wants to take a look at that. So.
I am able to go on MSBA's website and see it, when they put those policy changes out, they also put out a what got changed on it from, if it got changed in 2022, what it looked like in 21 versus the 22 one. So I could pull that if the board wanted to see that.
What was that again, Ryan?
So when MSBA changes those, they also put out what the changes were and the whys. I could pull that for the school board so you could see, you know, what MSBA's 2021 policy is versus the 2022. So you could see, you know, why they made change to theirs, if the board wanted that.
I guess I'd like to see what changes it was. I just don't think it's anything.
And Brian could also request if MSBA could maybe review our current policy and just maybe get an opinion of what they think about it or if it's in compliance. Thank you.
So then, if I understand correctly, Toby, you'll need to make a motion to take off the fund balance policy, if that's what you wish.
Yes, I'll make that motion to remove the fund balance policy.
And we can look at that next month. We'll
Yes,
look at it next month.
that sounds good.
Would that motion also include approving the other 3 policies?
Sure, yes.
So we're approving the coaching handbook, the transportation of public school students, and the video recording on school buses. Is there a motion to accept that?
I'll make that motion.
And a second.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is the Quebec lease.
We talked about this last month, talked with Mr. Quebec, he has agreed to the terms. We talked last month to leave it the same as we've had in the past, so just looking for approval, from the board now to accept the Quebec lease, as has been written.
Can we, and it's my opinion, on number 6, says leasing has a right without consent of the leaseor to sublease the premises. Either take that out or put, with written consent of the leaseor. And then also on number 12, you just have to put in, and leasing at the end. It must have just got cut off.
Would all of you like to see number 6 change to that?
That sounds good to me.
So number 6, basically he has permission to use it for ag purposes, but if he chose to do that, he'd be also getting approval from me in writing. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe what Shelley was saying.
Not to sublease it
Without something, without it in writing also from the district.
Alright, so with those changes to the Quebec lease, does someone wanna make a motion on accepting the Quebec lease?
One question on that. Is the $700 kind of the market? Is that in line with the market? I have no idea. Doesn't cover the taxes on it, but
Sometimes cheap.
I have no idea if it's in the market or not, or.
Last month, the board talked about using about half, paying about half, felt it was a win-win. Guess I don't know. Yep.
So I'm looking for a motion to
I'll make
accept.
the motion.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any additions to Jake Pride? Okay. Next up is graduation data.
So if you remember a few months ago, I had pulled graduation data, but it hadn't come out yet from MDE. MDE has now released graduation data. So this is primarily obviously for our high school. Proud to report, the first column is the current data that just came out, and the next column is the last year's numbers. Proud to say, at least in the categories that we have historically pulled, that not only compared to the state averages, but even what we were last year, we've improved our graduation rate, other than in one category, which was special education. Special education. Some theories why special education is lower. We have more kids go to our transition program. This data on here pulls 4-year graduation data. We have students who may complete 4 years at HFHS, but then go to our transition program for another 2 years. So they wouldn't have officially graduated because they're still getting schooling. We've also had a few more special education students go to Empower to finish some of their credits, but I have asked our admin team and Kate from Scred to kind of dive more into that, because I guess I wasn't expecting our special ed numbers to drop. That's the only area when you look at the last column where we're lower than state average. So really overall was pretty proud to see our high school numbers as far as graduation rate in 4 years. Better than last year for the most part, and then also higher than most areas in the state of Minnesota. This top chart I just kind of compared to our neighbors, so you could kind of see the comparisons between us and who border us. And then the bottom chart, same data, but I compared it to who have similar, I just chose our Native American population, as that's our second highest demographic, and then free and reduced populations. So just kind of pulling some similar numbers to see how we compare to schools who have a more similar demographic as Hinckley-Finlayson High School does. Again, here we were very comparable. We did well overall. Our special ed numbers are a little lower, at least for a couple of the schools, some of these schools just don't have enough data. Either they don't have a high enough percentage in that area, or not enough kids in that area took the tests, or they didn't have enough data to calculate that. So it's hard to kind of look apples to apples perfectly, but overall, we're still doing very well, even compared to schools that look similar to us. I don't know if there's any questions on any of that, or wonderments.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the graduation data? Moving on to committee list.
Just have committee list on here again, as it's hard to believe, we're gonna be hitting July soon, where we reset our school board committee list. So just as we head to that, June will be heavy with budgets, things like that, but wanted to get this on your radar early to see if there's anything we wanna do different with our school board committee lists.
You can let me know if you would like to come off of a committee or you would like to go on a committee. And we will have one opening for, teacher negotiations, that we'll make in July. So let me know, please.
I was just gonna tell you too, for the city of Hinckley-Finlayson, they have their meetings the exact same night we have board meetings. So I don't know how much representation we can have for that.
All right. Next up, SCRED program lease.
Looking for approval of the lease since we host the Pine County Transition Program. SCRED has an agreement with some of these county-wide programs or SCRED-wide programs, or if you host, they pay for some of that square footage. So looking for approval on the terms of this agreement. The terms are the exact same we've had the last few years for Pine County Transition Program to be hosted at Hinckley-Finlayson High School.
If nobody has any questions, I'm looking for a motion to accept the SCRED program lease for Pine County Transitions Program.
I'll move that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is the superintendent evaluation, which is the annual evaluation, and we will have that in July. So I will try to get you guys the survey in June. And then we'll do a closed session and all that in July like we normally have. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm just gonna let everybody else know too that MSBA is having a Zoom meeting regarding the superintendent's evaluation on Wednesday, May 24th from 9 to 10. It's free for all board members to watch.
And do they usually record those too?
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, sometimes they don't always have them there. I think usually it says.
Yeah, and this one didn't say, so this was fun. I think when it was 2020 when everything was on Zoom when I took it. So.
Thank you, Shelley. Next up is the MOU.
Looking for approval for one teacher, so the teacher contract between the teachers in the district allow a teacher to break only one personal day into 2 half-day increments. This MOU is looking for one teacher to be able to use more than one personal day that day to cover some leave for the rest of the school year. Again, we corrected the MOU at the beginning to make sure it has the correct school year in there, but looking for approval to allow this one staff member to use more than one personal day in half-day increments.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Does that also apply to other teachers and or employees, or just that one
It'll
person?
just be this one person.
Okay. And you'll just evaluate on a case-by-case basis if something else would come up from another employee? Okay.
If there's no other questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is the school board self-evaluation.
So I shared with the board a little bit ago, but we wanted to talk about it here as well. We did our school board self-evaluation, got the results. It looks like the last time that the district had done this was in 2017. MSBA would be willing to come dive into this data with us, but kind of looking for guidance from you if we want to see more information in this, any takeaways, just any next steps the board would like to do regarding our self-evaluation that we did. I know it's hard to read if you're looking at the screen, apologize for that.
I just wish they had all the individual questions we had to answer and how it relates to that.
I think it was very generic,
Mm-hmm.
the
result.
the results.
Because how much is it if they come and do a deeper dive? Is it like $1,000?
$1,000, I think, if I remember correctly, 800 to 1,000.
It was like 2.5 hours, I think, at times.
Yeah, it was 1,095.
Yeah, it was a couple hours. They'd come out and whether before a board meeting or a separate board meeting and walk through stuff with us if we want to do that.
I guess I would be open to it because looking at that doesn't really tell me much.
So,
I could look into, see what it costs, what it would entail, and we could decide next month if we wanted to.
and put it on next month as an action
Yep.
item.
Okay, I'll gather some more data on what it costs, what it would look like, when, and put it for an action item next month.
Maybe how long?
Okay. Okay.
Next up, there's 4 new policies for next month that are being presented. The tobacco-free policy, the kindergarten admission policy, establishment and adoption of school district budget, and the uniform grant guidance policy regarding Federal Reserve sources. Does anybody have any questions right now?
Let's see for a first read if there's anything that caught your eye right away, and as admin team will dig in, have a recommendation for next month.
Next up is the daycare licensing.
So just looking for discussion or looking to see kind of where the school board's at. We could move forward with pursuing a daycare license for the district. We've talked about at Finlayson Elementary School. So looking to see if the school board would be interested in applying for that. If we apply and go through the licensing part, that does not tie our hands to having to run a daycare. But from what I understand is the application process is about 6 months. So just looking to see, and the cost of that's about $500. So looking to see if the school board would like to move forward with the application part. And I don't know, Dave or Angela, you guys know even a little bit more than I do, but looking to see if the school board would like to move forward with that.
I guess we're just kind of wondering where everybody's at with it, if it's something that we want to pursue, or we just, the board isn't in favor of it, then it's not worth going through the time and the money of doing it.
For me right now, the only thing, my big thing is, there was a huge startup cost, if I remember right, to get this going.
They quoted us between, I believe, 70,000 and 120,000.
I just feel like we have a lot more needs to address right now.
Well, applying for the license doesn't mean we have to run it.
Well, exactly. I would be in support of applying for the license since it does take 6 months.
It's sort of the first step to even re-talking about it.
How long does the application last for?
I don't know,
That I don't know.
ever.
Who is going to take care of the licensing application?
Angela and
Okay.
I, if it's approved.
My only other concerns are, I guess I'm not in favor of a daycare right away. I'm not in favor of daycare at FES. I would like to see what the board has put into place, go to fruition at FES, and I know it's gonna take a few years to get our enrollment back up there. I don't wanna start something in Finlayson and then take it away. I was also thinking, could community ed take this on? Since it is a community need, discussion. I think if it was profitable, it could help with their expenses. I think it's gonna be hard to staff because right now we have open positions that are in like, I guess maybe wage status, support staff handbook, that are open in our elementary school. I think we have at least 2 right now. And I don't wanna take positions away from our pre-K to 12th grade for, a daycare. I wanna be able to staff our buildings first, before we take on something new. So those are my wonderments.
I think Joey's got some good ideas, but I think it's worth the $500 gamble to at least explore it. I think it's got a lot of opportunities. The cost kind of scares me, but I'd be willing to, for the $500 gamble for a time being.
I just wanna know how long it's gonna
I wanna mention again,
last.
this daycare is not for free. So if you can use existing staff that have time, that all schedule needs to be worked out, of course. It doesn't take a long time to repay that expense of remodeling. Cause it's not for free. So you already have employees that are running the daycare, which there's a very good possibility of that you can actually run it cheaper than a private one would. So, I mean, that needs to be explored, but we pretty well need to apply for a license before we go any farther. You can have that whole plan worked out and then wait 6 months for a license, and it's
Can I ask a
6
question
months.
just cause it's Finlayson? Is that all right?
What's that?
I just wanted to ask a question. If you apply for this or you go through the application process, does that tie you into like Finlayson Elementary?
That's what I was.
For this application, yeah.
Just because like, if you think it's going to come to fruition and we have some remodeling that would need to be done, cause we were looking at taking the music room and the existing preschool room, splitting Mr. Kellish's room. I mean, so that would have to have some remodeling that comes with it in order to start the school year. That would be the concern from my lens, I guess. Cause we would have to get something started if that's the case to be set for next year.
Do we have to name which school it's at or what site it's at in the application?
I would assume so,
It's
with
very
the
specific as
license.
to what you have to do.
You do? Okay.
And
They have to come in and
we're talking about Finlayson right now, but there is, I mean, Pine County is working on something in Hinckley as well. It's not like it's as a district starting something there to kind of pilot it to see how it goes and then.
Have we
In
sent
this
out a
case is-
survey to Finlayson area for a
We
daycare?
haven't yet because we needed to know if the board's not gonna be in support of it, it's not worth going any further with.
I guess if they'll,
It'd be nice to see like how much interest there was.
Well,
I
exactly.
get that it's a long time, but.
That's a good idea.
I mean, obviously, there's a
We
need
wouldn't-
for daycares, in plural, there
It's
is.
huge number of people who are looking for daycare. 75 just in Finlayson, 200 in Hinckley. It feeds our schools. Programs that are, I could imagine a 3 and 4 year old program, and that's what, 4 days a week? 5th day they're there for daycare. So think of a parent who will now bring their children there 5 days a week.
So what are we
I
gonna-
mean, there's various schedules and things like that that need to be worked out. And If the board is in favor of it, we'll apply for a license and work that out. The board has absolutely not wanna do anything in daycare. Well, then we'll end the discussion and not apply. But we have to apply before we really find out to do any other work. Why would we waste our time making out schedules, remodeling plans, all these kind of things? The board doesn't want it. If they want it, then we need to apply and then work on those things. That's
Which
about
I
summed up.
understand, I'm just not in favor of it being at Finlayson Elementary if we just moved the lines for the busing. So what happens in a couple years, maybe only 1 year into the daycare, we have too many students in our Finlayson Elementary, are we just gonna end it?
Wouldn't that be a good problem to
Yeah.
have?
I'm asking, I mean, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, I'm just asking, like, do we just then not have it? Because
Or
our
move
elementary,
it or something like that, I can't answer that.
The one thing Finlayson has that Hinckley Elementary doesn't have is space to expand. There's not,
but there's
Yeah,
a
they have
cost,
one.
there is a cost there.
there is, but again, like Dave said,
It's not like an
this is
extra
a
classroom.
this is a for-profit, it's not a, we're
As a
charging for this, it's,
Mhm.
and maybe once we apply for this, we can find somebody else. I mean, there's lots of possibilities, if somebody else came in and ran it. We're just wondering if we should just drop it, or if we run with it.
Have you found any daycares that have similar demographic areas as we do, you know, as far as population density?
We've talked about going and visiting them and interviewing them and finding out their business plan, they're stealing ideas from them. And we're glad to do that if the board is interested in applying for this thing. It's the first step to say, yes, there's more interest, let's go find out more information. That's where we're at tonight. There's a lot of questions and a lot of answering to do yet.
Have you identified any school districts that have the same population density as we do in our district?
Yep, and we plan on visiting them, if we wanna apply for an application.
We have reached out to other districts already, and we can go anytime and visit what they have in their schools. There's other districts that have this model already in place that are for profit.
Which I think is wonderful, I really do. I'm just nervous about putting on the application that it's at Finlayson Elementary when we just 3 months ago changed the lines for the busing.
Mm-hmm.
And now if you don't have to put it on there, yeah, I would like to see all the information is
Well, you know,
knowledge
maybe
and-
the 1st of September, you go, my gosh, we changed the line, the school is full, we've risked $500.
Well, probably won't be this year though. That's the problem.
Oh, we don't take
It's gonna be, it's gonna be a couple years
Mhm.
before
My thought is,
kids are going, sorry Jody.
if it's at Finlayson Elementary, we apply for it, but we can't be fully licensed until, say, whatever renovations would need to be done, so then would we have to do whatever renovations to Finlayson before the license would even be approved?
No. There were some articles that had to be there that are there, I don't know, various changing table or, I can't remember all the different requirements right now, but it was pretty minor stuff. Most everyone has in their home.
And that's where we need to talk to Bonnie, but we don't wanna go with this anymore until we. Cause there is,
You don't have to
after talking
remodel
to
it.
people, there's ways to do it where
Well,
we
but
don't
you-
have to do a big remodel.
Right, you
Yeah,
have to put
Bonnie,
a
what you're saying.
wall between Chris Kellish's room, which is plenty big. And then shift everyone around, it would open up the current kindergarten room, where it had the toilet and the hand washing sink, Dave, is what you were referring to, I believe. But that would only house one of the age
But
brackets.
see, that's the other thing we talked about, is just not doing infants.
Yeah, I think that's the
Doing-
hardest one to.
Doing toddlers, and then we only need the one room. It doesn't have to be divided, it doesn't have to be,
So
we
how many
just
can
need,
you have in that one room?
in that one room, depending on staffing and how many
It was.
It's 7 to 1.
7 to 1, yeah.
Infants is 4 to 1, and then the preschool is 10 to 1. So in that room, I don't remember the square feet, how many exactly we could have in that room, but it was at least 14
Yeah,
in that room.
yeah.
And it could be up to 21 if we had, I think in that room could have been, if it was just the toddlers.
What would happen if we spend $1,000 and apply for 2 licenses? Cause there's a need in both communities.
Because you need to have the space
Yeah,
identified,
Hinckley
there
Elementary.
isn't a space
Right, but I think there's other options in the community.
that we've been looking.
Okay,
Pine County, Leslie Sauter's been,
did they look at the Catholic Church basement by any chance?
Isn't
I
there a
don't know if
school in
they,
there?
what's that?
Isn't there a school in there?
I'm not sure if there's a homeschool or not, but
Oh, I thought there was a school.
there might be.
there are there's,
No, they,
What if could we table this till next month? We send
not
out
a
a
school there?
survey and
Okay.
see any interest? And do you,
it takes 6 months, so it's, the longer we wait, the longer it.
I guess one thing I'd like to see too is, I mean, the other school districts that are like us, that do have daycares, are they profitable? Are they losing money? What challenges are they facing? Because I feel like if we do a daycare, we're probably gonna cannibalize our staff that teaches students. Maybe some people wanna work in the daycare, now we have open positions that are teaching positions. And not only that, but none of us here have expertise in daycare, so who's gonna manage that to make sure that it's successful? And then you have to staff it, and I just feel there's a lot of challenges when we should be keeping our eye on the ball of getting our test scores up. Not that I'm emphasizing test scores, but educate our children. I think that's our primary mission here at Hinckley-Finlayson School District.
You know, Toby, those are all good questions, and they all need to be answered. But we're not gonna go through the effort without at least a license to say, find out these answers. Doesn't mean we have to use the license, doesn't mean we have to spend another dime on it. It's the first step without wasting the rest of our life getting those answers. It's a risk of $500 for an application. Those are all good questions, they're all stuff's gotta be answered.
I think it's more than,
You can't hardly have a model unless, why would you go through the effort of having a model if you don't have a application for a license in place?
I feel it's more than a gamble of, like Leo said, it's a gamble of $500. I believe that's what Leo said. But I feel it's more than a gamble of $500. I feel it's a gamble of what's the cost to remodel. I think that's the whole gamble, because if it's unprofitable, then now you're stuck with something that's not desirable, and you've invested a lot of money into a project. That's my concern.
But there are grants out there for funding. I don't know dollar amount, but there is grants out there. And I believe we got told at that one meeting that, there is somebody that would like to start one in Hinckley right now, but they didn't wanna go to Finlayson, so. But maybe they can be convinced, or at least explore it.
It's the #1 economic driver in our community, in Finlayson's community. #1 economic driver is daycare. It's why people come to live here, it's why people go to school here, it's why teachers wanna teach here. Bottom line. That's how important daycare is. There's huge need for it.
I don't argue that there's not a need for it. I'm just nervous doing changes and if it's specific to Finlayson, it's still $500.
Have you studied maybe having a third-party vendor come in and do daycare in that area? Maybe they want to expand and they don't have the means to expand, but hey, we have the space. Maybe they'd be willing to pay the remodeling fees and we don't have to worry about managing a daycare.
So far with our meetings with the county and Leslie Sauter, there hasn't been anybody.
suggested tabling it till next month. Or someone needs to make a motion to approve for a daycare license specifically at Finlayson Elementary.
Make a motion.
Yeah.
So there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Me.
Wonderful.
So then we will do a roll call. Tell me when you're ready, Dave.
I'm ready.
Leo,
Yes.
Heather,
No.
Dave,
Yes.
Toby,
No.
Angela, Shelley.
Yes.
Jody was a no. So the
Shelley, were
motion,
you
yes. So the motion passes and that's 4-3. Is that right, Dave?
Yep.
Alright, we have reached the end of our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
No good.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.